Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com, and welcome. I missed all of you. We took last week off for the Concentric Conference. Oh, I missed doing the show so much. Thanks to everybody who's going to join in today. I see 3 people are already here live. I know more will join as we add it on. Today is not Think Out Loud. Usually Mondays is one of our Think Out Loud sessions. Go see the Think Out Loud playlist. You've probably missed one of the 27 videos we've done in that series. Oh, hi, Whitney. Let me get you up on the screen. But today is something even more special. So for those of you who heard about the Concentric Conference that we held last week, we originally had 11 sessions, but unfortunately with the economy dropping and people being laid off, some of the sessions did not sell very well and we chose to cancel them. But we're trying to reschedule some of these as YouTube shows. So today we've rescheduled part of Leadership Day with some of our fantastic speakers who are going to talk about transitioning into UX leadership. For some of you, that's a long way away, and for some of you, that's going to be right around the corner. Oh, it's Darren Hood. He says, Baba boopy. That sounds like something I'd say to my dog, but thank you, Darren. I agree. Hey, Chukwudi is here, and missed you too. Nadu is here. Thank you, everybody. Nigeria in the house. Hi, Sunflower Seed. No, AMA is tomorrow, Sunflower Seed. Today is UX Leadership, as it says on the package right above me. And before we bring in our super special guests, as always, thank you to everybody filling me with delicious chocolate chips and streaming software. These people are low ego action heroes are giving between $3 and $10 American dollars per month by pressing the hard to find join button on YouTube. Last year I made $700 for the whole year, and this year I'm already at $1,300 for the whole year. Far from a full-time job, y'all, but you're definitely covering my chocolate chip habit. So thank you. Oh, Chiwat's Darren, what? Do you see this? Do you all see this? Is it, honey, are you watching my show? Oh, you're in a meeting. Sorry. Darren, thank you so much. Oh my God. Thank you, Darren. Darren just paid for my chocolate chips for a few months there. Okay. I'm a little verklempt. Thank you, Darren. Chiwat, thank you for staying awake for us. I think you're in Singapore and I know it's late there. Hi, Steph. Welcome back. I hope you had a good time in Paris. Yeah, I know, Nadu. I can't believe it. Oh my God. Fire. Hi, Manuel, super Nigeria in the house. All right, so let's meet our super cool guests for today. You've seen 2 of them on the show before, and one's new to us, so we're going to get to know her as well. I know. Hi, David. Cookie Power. Thank you, Darren. It's really just handfuls of chocolate chips. All right, let's bring in our super special guests. I'm also going to have to move these title thingies, but I'll work on that in a moment. So let's have everybody introduce themselves while I work on moving the titles from over their faces. Jennifer Fraser, start with you. Did I pronounce you correctly? I forgot to ask.
You did. Thank you very much, Debbie.
Tell us about you.
As Debbie just mentioned, Jennifer Fraser, and my current role is a VP of Experience at Macadamia, which is a healthcare consulting company. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, but it's a global company. We have people all over the world, including Armenia and Romania. Within the role of VP of Experience is one we kind of made up, and it's really at the intersection of customer experience, employee experience, and user experience. By background, I'm an interaction designer, and I've been working in the user experience field for over 20 years now. So I've definitely seen a lot of ups and downs and evolution of the industry as well as we've aged and continue to grow.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Also, where can we find you? Do you have a LinkedIn website? Where tweeting? What do you do?
Yep. LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to find me, or there's also a profile page on our macadamian.com website as well.
Okay, super. I don't seem able to move the chat, so they might cover Michelle from time to time. She'll have to lean to her left or something. Jeremy, we've seen you before, but tell us who the heck you are. Uh-oh, we lost Michelle there.
It's going to be, you can put me in Michelle's corner. No one's going to miss seeing my face a little bit.
No.
Good to be back, Debbie. Thanks for having me. Very excited to talk about this. like Jennifer, I've been doing this for a while. Started in UX in the mid 90s, been at independent to small agency to large agency, startup to Fortune 100, just about every industry. And I'm currently the UX director at a company called Omnicell, which does pharmacy robotics. And so one of the things that I tend to specialize in, or at least I'm a glutton for punishment, so I do it a lot, is building UX practices within companies where they don't really exist. So
Thank you. We need that. We need that. And before we introduce Michelle, I just want to mention Chiwat said upgrade to Godiva. Godiva is actually a downgrade from what I'm buying. I definitely have a little bit of an expensive chocolate chip habit. People, those who get to know me know that I'm not much for vices. It's mostly karaoke and chocolate chips. So I am eating Calibo, which you are, if you can spell Frenchly, you will find it. All right, Michelle, tell us about you. I know you'll be needing to mute and unmute. You have some background noise today, but we're a fan of you and you're a fan of us. Tell us more.
Yay. Hi, I'm Michelle. Sorry, I've got new floor has been put in, so you might be hearing some of that a little bit. I'm Michelle. I live here in Houston, Texas. I work at a digital agency here in Houston. I am the head of UX design, and this is 6 months into this adventure for me. First actual I'm a boss and I have employees role.
Congratulations.
And thank you. It only took like 23 years. No biggie. Let's see, what do I do? So I have a small team of UX generalists. They are UX and UI design folk, and we work on all kind of projects, mostly for enterprise and industrial clients. So fun stuff there. And you can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out.
Excellent, excellent. I also want to apologize. It looks like I cannot move these titles without rebooting the software I'm using, so they're just going to interfere with Michelle's face from time to time. So since today's topic is UX leadership and transitioning into UX leadership, it can be a hard jump for a lot of people. So I'd love to hear everybody's stories. We'll go around again and tell us about how you went from being an individual contributor into that lead or manager or director job. And I guess I'll start with Jennifer, if you don't mind going first.
Sure. So before I started at the consulting company where I am now, I did do a stint over a decade in a product company, and it was there that I originally kind of made that transition. And at the time, unlike more recently now, where we're seeing more kind of leadership IC, individual contributor roles, there wasn't really that as a part of the framework where I worked. And so really the only kind of path was to become a people manager. So I started managing a team of user experience designers. Left there to go and move into a consulting company, and I started as a senior interaction designer, so kind of in the craft. But then there was an opportunity. They opened up a position for a director of the user experience team. So I applied and then transitioned into that role where I had accountabilities for managing other people. But it's interesting because lately I've been seeing more and more companies within the last 3 to 5 years that are realizing that there's other ways to lead aside from just having accountability for people within the organization. So even within our own company, we've set up practice leads. So these are people that are incredibly experienced in their craft, and they have some mentorship accountabilities, but not necessarily management accountabilities. But I feel like I've already gone off topic a little bit, so I'll pause.
It's fine. It's fine. It's super freeform here, and I'm starting to collect some questions. Plus, you have a hello from Linda Francis, who says, "So great to see you. Hope all is going well." So now it's just personal chats. Before let's get everybody else's stories, and then we'll start asking some of the questions. Jeremy, your transition story.
Probably the best words I could use to describe it would be accidental and rocky. The accidental part was, I think it was around 2007, I got hired as the first UX person into a startup. And just as I was sort of getting my, my bearings and understanding what we were doing and all that, the CEO comes back from a convention and goes, "Guess what? We hired Adobe, and now you have a team of consultants." And I was like, "Okay, they don't really work for me, but now I'm directing the work of a bunch of people." And so that was sort of the first foray into leadership. And where it got rocky was, I think I did have a lead role after that, but I was doing a lot of startups at the time. And it wasn't unusual for a startup to hire me, actually even some bigger companies, and they say, "We want you to build a UX practice." And then I get there and they say, "Actually, we don't really have any money to hire, so can you just be the UX team?" So I had these kind of ups and downs in my resume where I was going from leading a team, individual contributor, even though I was hired and I might have had like a director role or some other fancy title, but I was essentially the UX team, to maybe leading again and then being an IC. And so when I was looking for work, if I was looking for a manager role or a lead role, the recruiters would say, "But you've had all these IC roles, so are you really a lead?" And when I'd look for IC, if I was looking at an IC role, they say, "But you've managed teams. Do you really want to be?" And so I was kind of in this middle ground. I think really up until a couple of years ago, because when I was at the Broad Institute and I built the team there, and that seemed to kind of solidify things a little bit. Then I went on to another director role at Audible before joining Omnicell. So it kind of took a little bit to get a little more consistency in the proverbial CV, because I was bouncing around, and that's just like startups and agencies are unpredictable. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yes, interesting. So many questions, but let's hear Michelle's story, and then we'll circle back to some of the questions in the chat room.
Sure. So I've been in leadership positions almost the entirety of my career, and you can lead without having employees. And so I certainly found any opportunity I could the entirety of my career to find ways to lead in any way I could. And so I've had all kinds of like UX lead of one, me. I've had a director position where I had a ton of authority, but I still had no employees. And I was getting actually really tired and trying to figure out how to progress. And I actually was thinking maybe I should just go into product management instead, because I had a job where I was the UX lead and the product owner. And I was really good at being a product owner. I was like, maybe I should just give up on UX because I can't get to that next level. And, serendipity stepped in, and my boss, Evelina, she was on ADP list. And I said, let me reach out to someone who's, works at a company local, and just questions about how they got into leadership. And she had like, "Hey, I've got this role." And she kind of like convinced me to apply. And now I finally am like, I'm head of UX and I have employees. And like I said, it only took 23 years. And it was almost like one of those things that came out of the ether, like handed to me type of thing. But yeah, that's my very long, short story.
Perfectly short, long. So let me start asking some of the questions from the chat room, rolling back a couple of minutes to some things that Solomon threw out there. And one of the first questions was kind of, does leadership equal management in UX? This is something I've found to be different between North America and Europe. Jeremy, you're nodding. I'm going to call on you first.
No, I think as Michelle said it very clearly, they're not the same thing. And I think management and leading people is a very distinct and different set of responsibilities and skills than leading design.
Anybody want to add to that? No.
Ditto.
I like that. Okay. And scene.
To add to it, you can be a leader and be a manager at the same time. Or you could be a manager and not lead at all, and literally just be like somebody's boss, and like you're the person who like approves vacation and stuff. There's a gulf there. So yeah, you can definitely, if you can't get that magic management position that you're looking for, there are opportunities to find leadership, to find be a lead, and to have impact without having employees. So you really got to think about what it is you actually want to do. If it is that you just want to have a lot of impact, you can absolutely do that without being a manager.
And what I've seen, I'm in Europe now, and what I've seen in Europe and Africa, I don't know about east of me, but I've seen that very often the lead title, like lead researcher, lead designer, is very often a line manager, but is not necessarily doing other types of leadership. Like they're not organizationally strategic, but they are line managing a couple of people. So it's almost like a junior management position that I've seen outside of North America. But another question that came in was, and this I think this transitions in from what we were just saying, is, well, what if you don't want to be a manager? You know, what's the path for you in UX if you don't want to be a manager? I've got my own answer to that, but Michelle, do you want to start this time?
This is something I'm actually trying to figure out for my team right now. And I know that for some companies, they have like principals and staff. And the whole idea is that these are super individual contributors that are so high up that they have no interest in being people managers, but they're way too high up to just be, senior. And so that's something we're trying to think about is there a path for people who don't want to be people managers, but they're just, I can't just keep having them be like lead forever type of thing. I think that's common in software shops. Like I'm pretty sure Microsoft probably has staff developers who've been there 40 years who are, way higher than probably a lot of the managers that are there. So I do think that that's a possibility, but that's less common in the UX realm than it is in development. So I think it's something we need to kind of develop and nurture.
I've seen the same thing. Anybody want to add something to that for that non-people managing path? No? Optional.
Yeah, I think
I would say it's incumbent on us as leaders to create that path. Because otherwise, I mean, there's the Peter principle, right? You get promoted to your level of incompetence. You take someone who's really good individual contributor, and then you make them a manager, which they don't like and they're not good at. But you don't want to demote them, and they don't want to be demoted. But you can't promote them because they're not doing any good in the role, and they're just stuck, and everyone's miserable. So make sure there's a good opportunities for people to do the things they're good at.
Jennifer?
Yeah. And when we were coming up with the definition of what a lead was within the context of our company, one of the things we wanted is to give them mentorship accountabilities, but not management accountabilities, as that first step towards, this person's a really fantastic individual contributor, they're at kind of a senior or principal level, but this gives them an opportunity to try mentorship to say, is management something I'm interested in? Because all too often it's kind of an all or nothing, right? You either go from being an IC to being a manager, and you don't get a chance to say, is this something I'm really even interested in? So by being able to mentor people, they can say, is this something I want to do? Is that the path that I want to follow? Or do I want to go back into more of the individual contributor track?
Thank you. Thank you. Linda says, absolutely, Jeremy. Peter principle happens all the time. Scrolling back up to the questions, Solomon wants to know, what are the biggest challenges you've faced as a UX leader? Who wants to jump on current biggest challenges first? Uh-oh, nobody. And maybe you don't want to admit to it.
My biggest challenge is task switching between having 18,000 meetings a day. I literally live in meetings, and it makes it near impossible to do any actual work. So I do work in evenings and on the weekend. I literally haven't had a weekend free just because it's the way it is. You spend all day long constantly switching between this thing and this thing, and your brain is toast by the end of the day. It's exhausting. That's the thing I'm trying to figure out right now. Sorry, Jeremy, I didn't realize you were talking.
Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
No, that's fine. It's the Zoom or the online meeting delay that the talking over is inevitable. I don't take it personally. And I apologize if I do it. I'd say that one of the hardest things that I try to work on is keeping my mouth shut. And I think this is definitely a thing as you get into a level of managing and coaching and mentoring. You go, wow, I've got all this great experience, and I've read the things, and I've experienced the things, and you have a problem, and I have a great idea for how to solve it. And that might not be what that person needs in that moment. So being able to at least ask, what are you looking for from me? Did you want ideas? Did you want advice? Or are you looking for just a sounding board? Do you want me to help you think through it? Do you want coaching? Do you want something else? And even then, I think people often tell me that they want coaching, and I hear it so often, I start to wonder, is that really what they want? Or is that what they think they're supposed to say that they want because I'm their manager? So yeah, keep my mouth shut and let people work through their problem in their way, because they probably have a great idea and they're closer to the problem than I am. I get a broader view, which can be really helpful in certain scenarios, but trying to avoid just diving in and solving someone else's problem.
Yeah, thanks. Jennifer, any challenges you want to talk about?
Yeah, I had to pause because there's so many. But to build off of what Jeremy said, I think part of the transition from IC into kind of that leadership role is just, for the longest time, kind of UX, like your craft in a way is the world, right, within which that's like your first team. And then when you're transitioning into a different role, different accountabilities, it's a bit of a shift in terms of it's the broader business needs that you need to be tying into, and understanding more broadly what is it that the UX team and discipline can bring to help solve the business problems within the broader organization. So it's just kind of taking all our skills but applying them more to the business problem instead of necessarily the problems of our specific domain. So it's just kind of a broadening of our lens and our sphere of influence.
Thank you. I'm just going to keep firing questions if you don't mind. The chat room is going wild. So I'm going to roll back to Melanie's question, which is a little bit going back in time. What do you feel the biggest hurdle is you've had to overcome when transitioning from practitioner to management? Everybody looks like they're still thinking. Michelle, you look a little bit more ready.
For me, it's knowing when to stop trying to solve the problem as a designer and like take the designer hat off. I'm not an individual contributor anymore, and letting my team do it. When I first got here, I was like, hey, I can do that. My boss was like, no, you are the boss. You don't do the work. And I was just like, but I can do it. So just trying to like separate myself from the craft a little bit so that I can do the other things I need to do. Because you just ride up. It's very, very hard being a manager and an individual contributor at the same time. Your brain just gets completely destroyed. And it's very hard to do either one well when you're splitting like that. So for me, it was just having to give up the idea that I'm a designer. Like I'm still a designer in that regard, but I'm the boss now. So I have to trust other people to do the work and not constantly try to go, well, I would have done it this way type of thing, and insert myself into things. So it's been tough.
We're here for you. Jennifer, what about you? Any big hurdles in that transition into management?
Yeah, I think, well, similar to what Michelle said, it's, being a designer, right, is in our core. So it's not like it goes away, but it's just that shift in focus, and maybe being able to take those design skills, but applying them more to kind of the organizational problems or the business problems. So in a way, it's just kind of the medium within which we're designing or working for has changed from kind of the pixels on the screen to more what are the business problems that we can help solve, or the employee experience challenges as well as we're trying to move to support our teams.
Got it. More strategic and operational and a little bit administrative. Jeremy, something to add?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Jennifer and Michelle just said. Maybe one thing I'll add is that I'm glad that I have done years of therapy and self-work before really taking on this, because people will bring you all kinds of things. And if you can't be in a really kind of centered place, it's going to be a real struggle to deal with some of the difficult things that people need your help with. Some of it will be work related. Some of it will be very personal. And And I think there's some very common reactions that many of us have when we're presented with a difficult scenario, and that might not be how we need to help those people in that moment. So do the work on yourself first, and before you are ready to take on what other people might need you to take on.
Serious but very good advice. Couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. That's a really great angle. Solomon says, how do you qualify a good UX leader? What are your expectations? Jeremy, you look ready.
I know it's just such an evolving, it's a moving target. Every organization is a little bit different. And when as I build practices, I'm always going out and looking at how are other people defining these roles? And they're all either really vague or a little bit different. And so it can be challenging to figure out like if I'm hiring a UX leader, what are my expectations? And sometimes you don't realize what they are until someone misses it and you go, oh, I had an expectation and I didn't clarify it. I better clarify that. And if it is an expectation, make sure we look for that in the future. And is that something that might be general across the board, or is it something that's specific to the needs of this organization in this moment in time? So I think the important thing there is you can't hold someone accountable for an expectation that you didn't clarify.
Thank you. Anybody want to add something to that? Jennifer?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's contextual in some ways within the organization, because different organizations have different needs and therefore create different spaces for people to lead, right? So it's kind of, just understanding where there's a place for you to step in within your organization. I think another part of it is, and we've all talked about this, is that different people can lead in different ways. But I think, there's a way to lead in terms of how you work with other people. So the people aspect. There's also just like the craft and leading from a craft perspective. And then also leading from that kind of operational kind of business side as well. So different people have different strengths. And to Jeremy's point, people might be really strong in one of those three dimensions and not as strong in others. So it's hard to kind of come up with a blanket answer to that question.
Michelle, anything to add, or is it too soon for you to be looking for leaders?
No, I mean, I have leads on my team, and what I look for them and what I expect for them is for them to be strategic and be able to, since we're an agency and we work with clients, I need them to be able to kind of own the UX for the project they're in, and to be able to know if they've got a whole bunch of tasks, they have, so many hours they need to do them, to be strategic about what to work on, what matters, what doesn't matter, what matters to the client versus what might matter to you, and how to balance that kind of business aspect. That's what I look for as leadership on my team.
Cool, thank you. And we had a quick follow. Oh, and also we have a quick follow up for you, Jeremy, from Sophie, who says, follow up for Jeremy on his comments on having been in therapy. Radical candor, much?
I try. I think it's what I'm going to try and do here is there's a lot of things we just don't talk about. And I think as most as we can be open about some of the things that we haven't talked about as much in the past might help make sure that they get addressed more explicitly. I did want to at least add two expectations that I sort of realized I do have of leaders, and maybe, curious of Jennifer and Michelle's take on it. Especially in a new organization where UX is fairly new, the ability to educate other people is extremely important. In some ways, I think it goes from doing the work to a very much almost a sales job. You have to be able to teach the people around you not only the value of what you do, but how it's going to work, how long it's going to take, and all these other things that they're going to assume that you just wave that magic wand and magic happens. So a huge amount of education is necessary. And I think with that is some ability to wrangle chaos. That especially when UX as a practice is new, the expectations are going to be way higher than the capacity. So how do you balance the strategy and the tactical and the education, and lots of people want more than you can deliver? That's really hard. And I think especially if you want to come in at a senior principal level, like, that I have an expectation about being able to kind of wrangle a certain amount of that chaos, and especially help more junior people with their boundaries so that they can be successful.
Anybody want to add to that before I jump to the next question? Jennifer?
I'd love to add to that. I think absolutely. And in addition to educating others, I just want to add to that to say, be able to do it in a way to show why it's valuable to them. All too often, I see people, kind of earlier in their career, just kind of pounding the UX drum, but doing it in kind of a naive way, in that it's UX for the sake of UX, without the important step of being able to tie it to, why is this important for the business? Why is this important for me as a product manager? Why is this important for me as a technical architect? So really being able to express it in a way that makes sense to the people that you're working with, so they can understand the value in the
Wonderful.
work.
Excellent point. Michelle, anything you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, it's funny because just last week I was telling my team that I believe that UX period, doesn't matter where you work, if it's in an agency or enterprise, we are all salespeople, because we always have to sell what UX is, the value of it, and our ideas, right? When we've like, you should do this, why? You are selling all the time. And you can't just go do this thing because it'll make people feel delighted. You have to go do this thing because you like money, and this will help you make more money. I keep trying to drill it into my people's heads that everything we do, and I stole this from you, and I will keep saying that I stole it from you because I did, that UX is business risk mitigation. I heard that when you said it one time, and my brain went bling. That is so true wisdom. And I repeat it constantly because it is what it is. Good UX is good business. It will allow companies to make more money. And at the end of the day, unless you're a charity, companies are in business to make money. And if we're not helping companies do that, then we're not bringing that much value. So that's what I'm drilling all day long.
Thank you.
The thing that gets me about that, and I'm still kind of flummoxed in a way, is it's not like what we're saying is new. Every company says they want to be user-centric, user-focused, customer-focused, whatever. And then we say, great, we can help you do it. They go, no, not really.
We're fine.
Just do it the way we've always been doing it.
It's good enough. It hurts. Yeah, and so believe it or not, the show's half over. We've got a bunch of questions queued up. Thanks to everybody for their patience. Just a reminder to everybody, please subscribe here on the YouTube channel. We've got over just about 6,100 subscribers, and it's a constant battle for me because we are shadow banned. So if you enjoy the shows here, please find 3 friends, colleagues, managers, product managers, engineers. Tell them about the channel. Hopefully there's something for everybody here. And of course, you can join our free Slack and or Discord communities, absolutely no charge. You can find the links at deltacx.com/links, and there you'll also find how to interact with the show and also our show calendar of events. If you're wondering what the heck shows are coming up next and what are we doing today, you'll find it there. So back to the questions. We had a question. Oh, thank you, Mike. Thank you for the subscription. We had a question from Chiwat who wanted to know, what were your views on having skip level one-on-ones? And for those watching not familiar with the term, it means you're meeting with your manager's manager. Jennifer, thoughts on skip level one-on-ones?
I think conversations are critical, regardless of kind of what level they happen at. I work in a very matrixed organization, and people can just have a conversation with whoever they want to have a conversation with. I know that there's other organizations that are much more hierarchical in nature. So I think what I believe is fulsome feedback, right? Whether that's 360 or peer feedback, is really important, just so people have an opportunity to see the people they're working with, how they're feeling. But I think it shouldn't be something that just happens kind of at review time. I think it needs to be an ongoing conversation, and that ideally, open, authentic conversation is supported within your organization.
Got it. More organic. Michelle, something to add?
I think it depends on the type of company you work for. Very large enterprises where your VP level or that person who's above your boss has the authority to actually make decisions that your boss doesn't, and you might need to talk to them every once in a while so that they at least know your general hopes and dreams for your career ladder. But on a smaller company like the company I work for, we're very small. People can talk to each other all the time in Slack and ones with anyone at any time. It doesn't matter who it is. And it's just understood. If you want to talk to someone, go talk to them. The only thing I would expect from my people is that if it's something that I should be solving, let me try to solve it first before you go to my boss. But beyond that, I'm fine with people communicating with anybody. I can't stand hierarchy or bureaucracy or any of that type of floofy stuff. I think you should talk to whoever you need to talk to.
I like it. I like it. The left side of the screen is free flowing and groovy. It's a love scene. Jeremy, how about you?
So I think there's two, I was thinking like, what's the purpose of them, I guess, for a manager or as a people leader person. What I'm hoping to get out of it is some maybe direct insight that might not always make it into the conversations secondhand through the person that they report to. So I might get to hear things more directly that otherwise I might not hear. In order for that to happen, I have to make sure that people feel safe telling me those things. And since they're probably not people I engage with as much, it's just a little bit of extra work to make sure that people will actually tell me the things that they feel like they need to tell me. For their benefit, the hope is that they have some time to get some feedback, mentorship, stories, or something else from someone who's been doing it a lot longer than they have. So I hope if you have a skip level with someone way more senior than you, that you take advantage of it, come with questions, ask them things, even if it's just about how they got started or how they solved a particular problem in the past. It is a really valuable opportunity to kind of pick at someone's brain who you might not get to engage with that often, and they probably have some really good stories to tell.
Cool, thanks. Moving through the list of questions, I've even asked the audience to pause asking questions because I have such a long list. I'm not sure we'll get to all of them, and I'm sure some of you have a hard stop at in 22 minutes. So I'm going to kind of combine a question that Ralitza asked with a question that Chiwat asked. So I'm going to read both of them together, and you can kind of see how they go together and give your own answer. And Ralitza asked, what kinds of responsibilities do you have as a UX leader? How are they similar or different across organizations? Are you expected to practice? Is the role more liaison or management? And then Chiwat asked, how does a UX leader make sure all the disciplines like research, content design, UI, design ops get equal attention and work together? I feel like those can kind of be answered together if you feel as creative as I do today. Anybody want to jump on that compound question? Jeremy.
I can start. I think one of the big differences when you're in a leadership or maybe a people leadership position is your product changes. As a designer, my product is the thing that people will use, the software, the service, etc. That's the product that I'm designing. As a people leader, essentially, my product is the team. How am I creating a team that's going to be really effective at creating a product? I'm not directly creating the product. I'm just trying to help create the context in which great design will happen. So whether that's through process, through coaching, through advocacy around the organization, it's all those things that will give the team the best chance of success.
Love it. Delicious, delicious answer. Who else wants to jump in on that?
I can, in regards to the part, like what are the responsibilities of a UX leader? I'll answer that or try to. It depends. It depends on where you work and what's going on. At an agency, what I do, a big part of my job is pre-sales. I help us get new gigs by working with salespeople every day. My first meeting every single day is sales support, right? I help do estimations. I help with proposals. I meet with clients before we even get them. That's a big part of my job. That would not be part of your job in an enterprise, probably. It's just, it's different. Another big part of my job is just design operations. It's all of those different decisions about how to run the team and how to get the team trained and all that type of stuff. What's interesting is that other places I've worked at, my bosses, I guess people who would be in charge of UX, none of them were UX people. So their responsibilities were very, very different because they were mostly just standing by and letting the UX people do their thing because they weren't UX people and had no idea how to do the things that we did. So their jobs as UX leaders was basically just to get the hell out of the way and let the people who knew what they were doing do what they were doing. So it depends very much where you work and got things set up. Some companies actually want their leaders to actually be skilled in the thing they're leading, and some don't seem to care. So it just depends really where you work.
Jennifer?
And I think one thing that people need to acknowledge, and again, it varies depending on the organization, but by taking the path where you might be managing people, you are stepping away from that kind of individual contributor lane. So you'll need to acknowledge that there are people in that individual contributor lane that are more skilled than you because they're in the work of the work every day. So by becoming a manager, you are taking that, you are gaining new different skills and accountabilities, but you are no longer kind of, the person that knows all of the things about like the doing of the work. And so you'll need to create space for those other people that are the principals or the leads on the team. They are now the people that are kind of the top of the craft, and you'll be deferring to them, in certain matters and times because it's just your career has taken a different direction, and that's something to just consider for yourself as something that you'll have to come to terms with.
Yeah, thanks. Good point. Oh, Jeremy.
I mean, to add to that and kind of connect to your theme song, obviously as designers, we should be low ego anyway, because it's not, it's not for us. We're doing this work. We're doing this work for other people. Your ego has to be even lower as you move up the proverbial food chain. Even in the sense, I think that if things are going well, your team should be getting the credit for it because they're doing great work. And if it's not going well, you're stepping in and taking some responsibility for that. So you mostly end up with the bad stuff. So it's an important role. I mean, I think like you could be the best individual contributor, but if you don't have good support above you, you're not gonna be able to do great work. So leadership is extremely necessary, but it's not terribly glamorous. And it's, you will get less recognition than in other roles. So if you're going to do it, you do it because you want to be of service to the people on the teams and you want to help them succeed more than you want anything else for yourself.
Excellent reminder. Yes, a little bit more thankless than our typical thankless jobs. Sorry, I know, hurts. All right, let's jump on Linda's question. Linda says, could we start giving bonuses based on measurable outcomes versus tying income to management roles? Complicated. Anybody have a thought on bonuses based on measurable outcomes? Is anybody's company doing that?
My only bonuses that I get are based off revenue for my practice. So
Okay.
I don't get money unless my practice makes money. So it has nothing to do with me being, oh, you get money just because you're a manager. We have to deliver and bill enough money for me to get anything. So I'm a huge fan of meritocracy. I believe that if you work harder and you bring more value, you should get paid more. So I'm all for that.
Says the woman working nights and weekends. Okay, anybody else have something to add there?
Well, I think the rise of those principal, lead, really senior IC roles have, in a way, kind of started that trend. So that, because previously the only way to kind of, I hate saying this, but like move up or shift in your accountabilities was to go into that management position. And yeah, there was an increase in salary. But I think more of these senior roles like the principal or the discipline leads have kind of equalized things a little bit because it's a different type of skill set and specialization that people are bringing to the role. Yeah.
I'm very excited for the next question. Carly Grace is here, or at least was here, because this question was asked some time ago. And the question is, have you had experience working with and leading imposter UX designers? Not those with imposter syndrome, actual imposters. I know you're not going to name names or tell stories, but can you tell us about some of those challenges of dealing with somebody who maybe wasn't very good at their job, maybe wasn't completely honest about their skill set? Oops, sorry, I have a bug flying around me. I'm not just clapping randomly in the air. Anybody want to talk about that?
I can. I have worked with people who had, lots of experience on their resume and sound really great and have really good reviews on LinkedIn. And then you get them in there and every single project they're on, it's not right. And I worked at a place where I was on multiple Scrum teams. This is before I was there, and I wound up having to always fix everything that person did. And so I was doing my job, and everything that they did, I had to go back in and fix it. So definitely what it's like to work with people. Just because someone's been in the industry for a decade or something doesn't mean they're actually very good. It's very easy, I think, to fudge your resume and credentials, particularly if you're part of that UX that people don't require a portfolio. Portfolios are helpful because they help to show at least some proof of something. People who come in with no portfolio, but they just talk themselves up, you don't know what you're getting sometimes. At least we didn't.
We've all been there. Jennifer, stories?
Yeah. Well, and I think Michelle talked about being in an agency, and I think part of what's really difficult to ascertain during an interview is just the interpersonal skills and the communication skills, and how do people, actually do when they're in kind of emotional situations or trying to build that trust quickly with a client. And so there have been situations where we've brought people on either as contractors, not so often as employees, but just they're not a good fit with the client dynamics, or it's more kind of the interpersonal. It's not that they can't. I'm sure that some ways they're capable of doing like the work of the work, but everything around it, which is so important to getting the work done. So much of our job is actually communication and working with others. That's the part where there has been gaps, and so we've had to swap people out or remove them from a project just because there was that tension that you're talking about, Michelle.
Jeremy?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. And I guess I try to think like what's not happening and why, and is there a skills gap that someone doesn't know something that they should know? Is it a mismatch in expectations? I mean, a lot of things sometimes just come down to communication, like expectations not being communicated clearly. Is there something that the organization is doing that's incentivizing an unhelpful behavior? So all of these, or are we tolerating an unhelpful behavior? Is it that, the dynamics of different people are not coming together in a productive way? Because I think you can often take people with very strong skills and put them in a situation where they're not set up to succeed. So part of the thing that I'm looking for if someone's struggling is how much of it is, are they contributing? We all contribute to the dynamics we're a part of. And how much of it is the environment contributing, or are other people contributing? So, and can we think holistically about what how to get where we want to go?
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a very interesting question, which even got an unofficial +1 from Darren. And the question says, how do you deal with microaggressions and gaslighting from a senior UX director whose time has passed and is clearly gatekeeping your path towards leadership? Anybody, I mean, you don't have to name names or companies, but has anybody dealt with feeling like their leadership path was deliberately blocked, and anything they did about that? Stories, remembrances, nostalgia? Jennifer?
That's challenging because it's so contextual. I feel like we said that to every question that's been asked. It depends on the organization. I think one suggestion could be to reach out to a peer of that person from a mentorship perspective, to see if that peer has suggestions in terms of how they've been able to work successfully with this person. Because again, part of it is just understanding what is motivating that person, what's there, what needs do they have, and how can you contribute to helping them meet their needs in a way that's going to also help you meet some of your unmet needs. And so if you know somebody, it doesn't even have to be a peer. If you see somebody that has a more productive working relationship with that person, reach out to them and see if they can give you some suggestions. If you can find out how did they manage to kind of shift the dynamic of the relationship into a more constructive way.
Sorry, the temperature.
It's okay.
It became summer here again, and now I have bugs flying around me. We'll take Michelle last, maybe. Jeremy, something to add to that, or I can't. I'm covered in bugs. I can't remember if you already went.
Sure. Well, as a middle-aged white dude, I don't think anyone has been blocking my career path that I've been aware of. So maybe what I would say is, for those in my demographic, in leadership positions, that we have to be on the lookout for other people who are blocking, and call it out when we see it. Engage HR. I mean, all of these is like a big question. Do you trust HR? Are they there to do the right thing and help people, or are they there to protect the organization? If it's the former, they can be great partners. If it's the latter, it might not be the greatest company to be with, or it might be one sign to notice. So, yeah, I guess it's on us to do better at noticing these things and preventing bad behavior.
Yeah, and Oz is in the chat room reminding us that sometimes the only thing you can do is accept the situation or quit. I've been there and it's awful. Michelle, something to add about a higher level person gatekeeping someone's leadership path?
I have never had that experience like that. I've never had someone above me trying to prevent me from moving forward. I think I've had people on the same level and problematic. But I have worked at places where people higher above me have been problematic towards other people. And I'll tell you that if you work in an environment where that's tolerated and it's known, that tells you a lot about the culture of that company. The only advice I could give you is leave, because if that kind of behavior is tolerated, like VPs are able to bully their employees and you can see them doing this type of thing and it's known and no one cares, that's rot in that company, and you're not going to fix that by just talking to a few people. And I know it's easy to go get another job, but that might be the cue to start looking for another job and keep your job until you get that new one. But sometimes when things are broken, you're not going to be able to fix them.
Yeah, sometimes there's a Grand Canyon between the company values on the poster and the T-shirts and the stickers and the things that are actually happening in the organization, and we can't believe the posters. We have to go with the actual culture that we're living in. Jeremy, you adding something to that?
Yeah, I think it's a great quote something along the lines of culture isn't what you advocate for, it's what you tolerate. So sometimes, yeah, there is that gap between what's tolerated and what a company says they value. And maybe a nuance I would add to what Michelle says, because it's what kind of keeps me going, not just around this, but just the challenges of integrating UX in general, is do I see change? And am I comfortable enough with the rate of change, understanding the rate of change will never be what I want it to be, because I will always want it to move faster. But is it moving at a pace that I'm okay with, and I'm willing to keep kind of helping push it forward?
It's funny, I warned Jennifer before the show that she might end up with a sad face next to her face, and it just happened. So remember, I can't control where the emojis go on the screen. They're completely random. It was Oz's comment that, y'all remind me why I refused to go back to a regular job even when I was flat broke. So, yeah, I know we're not totally full of sunshine today. I want to jump to our last question, and then we'll do some quick show notes for this week because we have some really exciting shows coming up, and we'll get last words from everybody before we say goodbye. So our last question came from Udipta, which I thought was an interesting flip of things because he's not in leadership. He's still looking for his first UX job. So he asked, what questions could a candidate ask during a job interview to assess whether someone is a good leader or manager? I know you can't be like, Jeremy, are you a good manager? Anyone? Michelle, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you could ask maybe some scenarios and see how that person would respond. And what I mean by that is, are they going to respond in a way that shows that they're not there to protect themselves, but they're there to take the hits for the team? That's what I would be looking for. I would be asking, I'm trying to think of a question to ask. My brain's like, bleh. But trying to figure out how they would respond to protecting the team and how they respond to things like feedback. If they're going to be like overly dogmatic, or are they going to ask you questions in return and try to understand why you did something and provide guidance versus dictation. So I would try to find out, is this person a dictator? And is this person going to actually take the hits for you so that you can shine, or are they going to take the credit? Because there are people out there who all they really want to do is take the credit for your work. And you might not see that until you get there and then realize all the work you did, your boss is sitting there taking all the credit. I have worked at places where I did all the wonderful work, won a ton of awards, and it was my bosses who took all the credit and praise for it. That sucks. It's really hard to figure that out in an interview, but I would say try to figure out how to ask questions that would get that person how they would handle those situations.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I think if you can define for yourself what is a good manager for you, and if you can share that with the person and just say, can you, to Michelle's point, behavioral interview question, can you tell me an example where you've, supported somebody when they're having an issue on a project? So they do need to tell those stories, and you can understand, okay, this is what's important to me in a manager, and whether or not that person has been able to demonstrate it with a real scenario of how they were able to meet that need for somebody else on the team. And also, I just asked them how they define success for that role as well. What are their success metrics for that role? So you can see if that's in line with your own goals or metrics.
Okay, thanks. Jeremy?
Yeah, two that I could add to that. You could ask them either in the present tense or the past tense what their biggest challenge is as a leader and how they're responding to that, either when they have responded to recently, like in the past 6 months, or what's your biggest challenge right now and how are you currently thinking through addressing it? One thing I also like to ask, especially for new practices or newish, how has the practice evolved in the past 6 months, year, et cetera? And what was their role in shepherding that change? And then you'll obviously be able to see how they think about the practice and how they engage with others in the practice.
Thanks for that. Now, I realize we're coming up on 1/2 and it's the work day for the three of you in America. Does anybody have a hard stop and have to leave right now? Can we go a few extra minutes? Okay, thanks. So really quickly, I just want to mention a couple of shows going on this week. Yes, thank you. And then we've got one more question that came in, even though I had said no more questions, and we'll answer that and then we'll wrap up. So a reminder to everybody that tomorrow is Office Hours Ask Me Anything with a special guest that you requested. It will be Varun from Apple and Banana. Thank you, Oz. Damn it. Thank you, Oz. Too sweet of you. Always good to see you. And I hope you're going to road trip down for my wedding. So tomorrow, Varun from Apple and Banana will be our guest on Office Hours Ask Me Anything. Wednesday's show is not to be missed, but we moved it to a special time. So y'all are going to be confused on Wednesday. We're going to be starting an hour and a half later than usual, 8 p.m. Italy time. And it's going to be me and a new friend of the show, Dr. Ari Zelmanow, and we're going to be taking the stance of being anti-democratization. So we're going to be talking about some of the arguments we hear for it and why we're against it. So the Wednesday's show is democratization. You don't want to miss it. And then, of course, Friday, back to critical thinking, which we've missed for a couple of weeks. So I know some of you are sad and missing our Friday drinking games. All right, so the last question we got, which I think is an important one to take, and if you have to leave, please, I understand. Camila asks, as someone trying to transition into a UX design career, how can entry-level designers show leadership that our lack of expertise could be a risk worth taking, especially those of us who don't want to embellish our experience? So what kinds of leadership can a newbie show? Jeremy, you're always ready with these. Go for it.
Sure. I feel for the challenges of people entering UX from another field. While certainly not global, I think a lot of people struggle with the imagination to think about how someone would bring their skills from another practice into UX. There is definitely this bias to say, I want to see that you've done the thing before, and then I will hire you to do the thing. So as leaders, I think it's on us. We have to use our imagination more and go, wow, this person has some really interesting background, and we can teach you to do the thing. The thing itself is not proverbial rocket science. It's hard. It takes some skill, but we can teach you to do the thing. And you might bring these other really interesting skills into our domain. So, but, you know, so I recognize it's hard, and we have to do better as leaders. As far as what you can do as a candidate, at least what I look for is, what have you demonstrated in your other life, in your past roles? Is there something that you took ownership of, that you were able to drive, that you showed that learning, open mindset, that you took ownership of, like the same type of qualities we would look for in leadership generally. You can show it. It doesn't have to be a UX project where you exhibited those qualities.
Jennifer?
Yeah, I think to build on what Jeremy said, there's the craft of UX, but so much of our work is more around communication, problem solving, prioritizing. And I do also teach a course at a local college, and it's focusing on people that already they're on their second career or did a different degree. And what I find is people tend to undersell their own experience. So if you just kind of step back and reframe what you've done in terms of requirements gathering or communication, negotiation, facilitation, all those things are invaluable skills as UX professionals, and so much is applicable cross discipline. So I think just step back, look at what you have accomplished, and try and look at it through a different lens, and just embrace the work you've done and the fact that it is relevant and a very important part of where you are on your current journey as you're entering the new field of user experience.
Michelle?
So right now, I have two people on my team who both came out of boot camp. So they had no evidence, beyond going through boot camp for UX. What I was looking for was, are these people really smart? Are they interested in what they're doing? Do they show a concern about users? And do they show a passion for owning their own experience, their learning experience? I believe very strongly that your career is yours, and it's your job to nurture it and grow it and to learn the things that you need to do, and not to expect someone else to do it for you. And so I look for that. When I see people who are just really, really smart, I can overlook a lot of skills that they don't have, because I can teach anything. So that's what I looked for. Is like, are you really smart? Do you really care about this stuff? And are you going to bring everything you have to the role? That's what I look for.
Got it. Thank you. So let's have some closing statements and goodbyes. If anybody wants to say anything, and again, repeat where people can find you or follow you. Let's start with Jennifer. Where can we find you, follow you, anything you want to end with?
LinkedIn, I think, or through the Macadamian website. No, just thank you, Debbie. Thank you for creating the space for this conversation to happen.
Thanks for being a new guest here.
My pleasure. I think it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. So I think it's an important topic. And thanks for everybody that attended and asked questions as well.
Delta CX, covering the topics that don't get talked about a lot. Jeremy, where can we find and stalk you other than seeing you here from time to time?
Probably mostly on LinkedIn. I also have the Saving UX podcast, which has been on a bit of a hiatus, but we'll be coming back either in November. If we get too close to the holidays, it'll be January, and you can find that at sux.live. And again, thanks for doing this. If you are considering shifting into leadership, we need good leaders. So if it's something that interests you in any way, try it out. You don't have to stay in it. If you decide it's not for you, you can always go back to being an IC. There's lots of those roles out there, and it's not a failure for you if you do. It's just recognizing what you enjoy. What problems do you want to solve? And it is a very different set of problems. I enjoy it. I find it challenging. I find it rewarding to really kind of have that direct engagement. Like in some ways, I think users can be kind of abstract. Like these people that we build products for, they're out there and occasionally we engage with them and we get their feedback. But it's very different to have that very close connection to people on a regular basis where you're seeing both the challenges and the impact that you can have helping people kind of grow in their career and their practice. Can be very challenging, but also very rewarding. So give it a shot if you're curious.
Yeah, and also remember, we've got a leadership, and we'll get to you in a moment, Michelle, I didn't forget. We've got a leadership channel in both our Slack and our Discord. So if anybody needs a little bit of love, a little bit of help, a little bit of free mentoring, I think the channel is called something like Strategy Management Leadership. So look under letter S. But it's in both our Slack and our Discord, and you can join those for free. Just go to deltacx.com/links. Michelle, final words, and how can we stalk you other than we sometimes see you in the Slack channels?
LinkedIn, that's kind of where I hang out. My advice to people is to learn how to network and reach out to people who are smarter than you and who have the positions you want and become friends with them, because that has opened up a lot of stuff for me. Just in the past year, reaching out to Debbie and through her, becoming friends with Darren. I got to be on his podcast a bunch of times because I bothered to reach out to Evelina, my boss. A great opportunity came my way. Networking is powerful. Don't just think I'm going to do all the things and apply and cool jobs will come my way. Networking is definitely a better way to get jobs to come to you, which is always better than having to go find them yourselves. So network.
That's what they call the hidden job market. All right. So thank you so much to our guests, and thank you for staying late. Sorry we went late, but people had so many questions, so we had to even stop the questions. So I'm going to play us out of here, but remember, tomorrow, everybody, is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, 6:30 Italy time with Varun from Apple and Banana, and Wednesday with Dr. Ari, as we completely poop on democratization. That'll be 8 p.m. Italy time. So I'm going to play us out of here. Thanks, everybody, and see you soon. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are